All right. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. We have some guests, but we also have a lot of fun to look forward to today. It's one of those days where you get up and say, you know what? What am I doing here? Why am I really diving right into this? And you think, it's because it's July. It's supposed to be 108 degrees out today, and they're going to be cooking like steaks out front here on the parking lot. It's really cool. They don't even need a grill. But really, it's going to be a nice, beautiful day. And to get us started this week, let's welcome our Vice President of Education, who's going to step up. Our president is unavoidably delayed. But let's welcome Vince Bollinger, our stand-in president today. Vince Bollinger.
Thank you, Mike. So, as you can tell, we are currently having some slight technical difficulties, which is perfectly fine. We, of course, are TechMasters, so there's no issue with having technical difficulties. In fact, you definitely don't need it to do whatsoever to have a Toastmaster meeting. As I've been finding out as area director of a different area of Paris. In fact, if you hold down the power button on this computer, it doesn't want to shut up. It's a real though, shut up, and even when you shut up, it still doesn't want to. No, so anyway, now of course I've never ever done this before. I've never gone through this before, so I have no idea what I'm just kidding. I think that Will is probably just lying. He actually just didn't want to do the whole thing, the whole president thing anymore. So he turned over to the second commandment. Anyway, so if you could please rise and help me, if you help me see the flag, recite our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do you have an invocation timer today?
That would be me.
You have an invocation for us?
I do. You're never going to have it all together. That's like trying to eat once and for all.
I don't know what she's talking about. I feel like we currently have everything 150,000%. But not only we have our president, we also have our Toastmasters here. So that's also really, really good that we have all. But yes, of course, things do happen, and traffic is bad. Traffic was bad. It took me a little while longer to get here than usual. Anyway, so let's see. Do we have any business with him?
How about Minutes Lester?
Yes, we have minutes. I don't have my slide with me. I have no idea what to do. So, Mike, please give a business secretary to help us with our minutes from the previous meeting.
Certainly, Mr. Stand-in President and fellow Toastmasters last week, on July 23rd, we had a healthy group of over 17 or 18 people here. I don't have the exact number because for some reason my notes don't show me how many of us attended, which is pretty strange, because it should actually be in there. But we did have, this was we had guests, so we had met downstairs, we had 4 guests. We talked about the Toastmaster officer meeting on August 9th, the teleconference on July 23rd. Our Toastmaster was Vince Bollinger. We had 2 speakers, myself and Glenn. The best speaker went to Glenn, because the evaluator went to William Austin, and the Wise Well went to Marie. The spark plug went to myself, and the fuzzy mouse went to Marie.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Do you have any business?
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving right along. Okay, so, and let's see again, we have the Definitions Group the first Thursday of each month over at ILM, and the IoT Tuesday night, let's see, third Thursday, what day is that? Like this, that would be this upcoming Tuesday. If you recall, just Graham came by me last month, he gave us an interesting talk on the Internet of Things, and he runs a meeting group called the IoT Tuesday. All right, so today's Toastmaster, I think that while we're waiting, do you have any email from Tony, any updates? Contract or anything like that?
No news.
Do you remember what his theme was off the top of our heads?
Moving.
Moving. Okay, great. Well, I guess I'll introduce the theme. Today's theme is moving. I haven't moved in over 6 been about 6.5 years now. Moved in February of 2010. I bought a condo when I was 23. My parents bought a condo, and then about 5 years later, my fairly new wife and I ended up buying a house in St. Paul. We lived there for about 6.5 years. Our plan is to have a 10-year plan and move in sometime in 2020. Who knows? Could be 2019, could be 2021. Not quite sure. And one thing, of course, at that time, it was just a condo, so it didn't have that many things. But one thing I remember thinking was, when I moved from one house to the other, I think I'm gonna get one of the pot of things and rent it, fill it out over a couple of weeks, ship it somewhere, and they can store it for a while. All the stuff you don't need that will make your house look bad. We'll move the pot back in and slowly work stuff in. Just because it was quite the hassle, moving pretty much by myself in 1 day or so. It's kind of late. Anyway, so let's see. How full of our schedule here to start off. So the first thing to do, we want to have our Corchester. Today's Corchester is Clea. Clea's not here. Anybody would like to share a joke with us? Start off our miserable, terrible morning of awful traffic and half the tenants we typically have. If not, we can always slide on over to the 1-minute Toastmaster and see if they're here. That's what she is. Doesn't appear so. Oh, here you go. Will, it's still not here. All right. And our American, who is might have a word for us.
So, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, being that we are running this thing, it's called the hot seat meeting, and it's really all about standing up and being aware, being awake, diving into things. The word of the day is going to be awakening. So if you can use the word awakening in a sentence, awaken or awakening, it is the coming to life, and it's the diving into something. It's having fun, but it's not sleeping, it's showing up, it's participating. So the word today will be awakening, and I will be looking for a word picture. And a word picture is different from just colorful speech. Colorful speech can include a variety of different things, but a word picture in my mind is a simile, something that is either like or as hot as a toaster oven, or like the sun burning outside in the parking lot when I get into my car. That is a word picture. So I will be looking for word pictures. I will also on how it comes. I have a bell. I will use it, except for during speeches, because speeches are something we don't really do it for. But other than that, I will try to give you a picture to use the word today, awakening, in your Mr. Standard Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, our agenda today is that Barron has a Hillary Clinton rally. And it's quite the awakening today to be thrust into the Toastmastership and trying to adhere what it is that I'm saying ad hoc to it. All right, so moving right along, our next role that we're going to introduce here is the timer. Today's timer is Keith. Please tell us about your role.
Okay, I will be timing all of the speeches, intervals, introductions, and so on to make sure that we are staying to schedule. At the end of the meeting, I will tell you all what you did. Oh, and I have the color cards. So when you are giving a speech or a 1-minute presentation, I will keep track of your time. And green means that you are right on time, but nearing the end, so you should wrap up. Yellow means you're good. Do I have that right? Green is bare minimum. Okay. Green means you pass. Yellow means you're in the danger zone, and red means you're overtime. Sit down.
Right.
Today's tabletop discussion, we'll pray that that person who's here today is off the list. Apparently they're not showing up and they decided to delete themselves from the role and not mention who they were or tell anyone. Phenomenal. That's exactly what you want to do. That's as courteous and considerate as a hunter that kills a mother of cubs and just likes the cubs. That's probably bad. All right, so we will need a stand-in tabletop test. Do we have one?
Certainly, I would be very happy.
Remember that today's theme is movies, so make sure to hear all the questions. Thank you for stepping up again in a very difficult role to stand in on a moment's notice.
Thank you, Vince. Well, good morning, everyone. So, who has a role today that I should not call? Tyler? You can call me, I don't want. Okay.
So Jacobus and Tyler and I guess me, because apparently I'm the Toastmaster.
And Jacobus, do you have a role?
Yes. He's the speaker today. Are you a speaker or no? You're supposed to be, but if you aren't because you weren't prepared, that's fine. If he's not prepared, that's fine.
Okay.
Then
You're in the
you can call on him.
Thank you for helping me. Well, this is my first time of being table topics. No, this is my second time. So I should be experienced. Well, it's been a long time since I've moved. I think I've lived in my house for 25 years.
Mhm.
And I hope to not move anytime soon. The story that I shared with Tony for preparation for today's theme was how I moved my mother a few times after she lived in her home more than 60 years. And she grew up in the Depression and had a belief that one needs to save everything because you might need it someday. And so it was a big job and a big awakening for me to move my mother into an apartment for her home of 60 years. And then after that, she saved, while she was in the apartment, she also saved everything she accumulated. And so we had to move it once again when she moved to the nursing home. And so I have learned to live sparingly in my life and not accumulate those things. Hi there, Cody. So let me ask you,
Daniel random moving questions.
what is your favorite part of
My favorite part of moving has got to be playing the role of the helper mover, and not the person who is moving their belongings to another place. I have an appointment with my grandmother on Wednesday or Thursday to help her move. This might be a little more stressful than the typical helper mover role because I need to pick up a large metal hospital bed that weighs 6,000 to 1,000 pounds. So I'll need to do that with a couple of my cousins this Wednesday or Thursday. Originally, we had about 5 people lined up to move this bed, and 2 or 3 of the 5 just sprained their back. Kind of injury you get when you start to get a little bit older. Well, anyway, I really like moving, the part of moving that I like the best is being the helper because you don't have to stress it, actually. Thank you.
I'm lucky for your grandmother.
And I noticed, I realized that role is more fun. That was a true awakening for me.
And our guest, I believe last week I asked you, but just to call you, it was
True.
Drew. Drew. Oh, you were wonderful. Well. Drew. Tell us about what places you like to move move anywhere in the world. Why?
Anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world, I think the most beautiful place that I've ever been is the city of Vancouver, British Columbia. I only spent a day there, as in 24 hours. But around Falls Creek was stunning. And it was walkable. And my girlfriend and I walked almost everywhere in the city to public transportation to the world's largest park, public park. Walked around there, saw some amazing vistas, just the mountains everywhere. It was just generally a very beautiful city, as far as cities go.
Mike would appreciate it if you used the word of the day, awakening.
You're still awakening?
Yeah. I've only been awake for about an hour, so not really awake.
Jacobus, how about, what is your worst experience during a move ever?
Like 11 p.m. and then I realized the whole part of the house was going to move, and it spent like 4 hours cleaning out the garage. On the 3 a.m. Of course, it was cold in the middle of the winter and all this stuff. It was probably the worst experience.
Thank you. Timer, how are we doing on time?
We are still fine. Can we pull that schedule down so I can see the agenda?
Which one?
The regular black slides that have the times on them.
How do I do that?
Just control tab.
There we go. We are over.
No, that's Toastmaster.
Oh, that's Toastmaster. Okay, next slide, please. We've got 4 minutes left. Go, go, go.
Oh, all right, Leanne. What's the worst move? Toastmaster. Well, let me tell you, I know that. What's the worst experience you've had moving?
Well, moving is fresh in my mind because I moved less than 2 years ago from a house to a condo, and it was a lot of work. And once I was in, and I had to move out of the condo back into the house, which was on the market, for a week. While the floors were getting done, there was nothing left in the house, so I ended up sleeping in a bathtub. It was extremely uncomfortable, with also dogs and just everything spread out on the floor. So it was almost like camping, but not even as comfortable as camping. So that was my worst experience moving, which is still fresh in my mind, and I don't plan on moving again for a long time. Thank you. Now to the topics.
So at this point, thank you all for participating in Table Topics and discussing the topic of moving. Shall I turn the podium back to the table, to the Toastmaster of the day? Okay, thank you, Vince and Mike, for filling in this morning, and Tony, come on up, welcome.
I apologize for being late. Moving does weird things to you. It took longer to get here from my new place, which is closer than from the old place. Plus, I didn't know where the address, I've never been in this building yet, because I put Toastmasters on hiatus for a time. But at this point, we would be it is time to take a break. I'd like to see our general evaluator, the speakers and evaluators come up, and we'll take a 5-minute break and meet back here at 8:15.
Thank you for that.
Oh.
Yeah, we like, it's okay.
I just read the middle.
No, I'm an evaluator.
So,
So,
Yeah, next week is blank. That's
are you speaking?
No, Tyler.
I don't remember all of this, but, we'll
Okay.
slide you over and. So, one. Yes, for good. Right, so.
Are you planning to speak?
No, he was up there.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to
Okay.
get the email to him actually. Now, so, here's the, I do have a problem.
Were you,
I was evaluating, I would mean,
well, I'm an evaluator, so,
So I'll have you evaluate Tyler,
okay.
and then,
I feel like you want to.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, you wanna do- okay. and then is this your icebreaker? Okay. Do you have a title or?
Not very well. And, what's it like? Is it 4 to 6?
Yeah, probably on the shortest.
It says, I think they said officially it can be 3 to 5.
Oh, okay.
Short is 3 to 5, but icebreaker.
Okay.
And do you have a title?
I can't remember it.
That's just impromptu, so.
I did plan it a little bit like.
Oh, no, I
5
just
minutes,
wanted to.
so it's,
Oh, yeah.
When in doubt, try not.
It's okay. No.
You're quitting jumping on, aren't you?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Right through it.
All right.
We need to make sure Jacobus's address is in the list. We go,
Yeah,
it goes out to
Did you-
everybody.
oh, you have your-
I did email saying I noticed that.
I emailed him.
Oh, that's what you, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got that, it's right,
I gave him icebreaker slot, but I don't know if he doesn't use something.
Okay, and do you have an order?
Okay.
So.
Yeah, so Tyler, we're gonna have you go first, and
Do you
then
need, do you have
Vince will follow.
No, it's all just ground.
Perfect.
No, this is a drink.
Go ahead.
All right.
So you don't have slides, you just.
No.
So did you have a title and anything you want to say about you?
When in doubt, try. And then I'll give you time to read that, the background there.
Yeah.
Not much. That day I, since last week. I did some, little looking into that recently.
Yeah?
Yeah, because like, I've heard somebody talk about deep learning, but I didn't really know what it was. This is interesting stuff.
We've got another room downstairs because one of those, a little bit has a little more capacity. You can open up a divider and have like 3 times, you can put up to 75 people.
So now we have,
So,
I think
yeah.
part of it was because
Oh.
we're able to port all the network training to GPUs.
I want to bring up too,
And also bigger training sets.
I want to do a team
Also, they tried.
Toastmasters After Dark,
80s and 90s.
and I want to do it every quarter,
Didn't work for lack
Yeah.
of
4 times a year.
horsepower. and
Special
training
meetings, and I
sets.
want it to be
Now that they have that.
different people from our club doing presentations. First one, I talked to Gene yesterday. He's up for being the first to go through.
A lot of
But the idea is to give people a chance to speak in a conference-like setting, but with the support of the club, and it's a club-sponsored kind of thing.
Identifying objects.
But if we do this on a quarterly basis, the second week of the quarter, or the second month, first something in the second month of the quarter. So it's like February,
I think we can translate now.
April, July, and then I think November.
Very neat.
Like the first week of it.
July, August, September, so.
Yeah,
So it would be,
I'm interested in hearing.
not necessarily.
Right.
That's like.
In July, August, September.
Yeah.
October, December, November.
Yeah, in November, February, April,
I know that.
and August.
I would try to go to like the first week. How about like the first week of a membership? Does that make sense?
But I just want to bring it up to your attention. So that idea is fermenting. It needs to be better, and it's better than saying, well, I do it.
So I try to, obviously, have to keep.
Well, that's like a pretty much.
So anyway,
Quick question, moving experience. Can I use as an introduction? Yeah.
Yes.
so
Right, moving experience. Why,
Favorite move, or least favorite move, or where you want to be exiled to, or the last place you don't want.
Yeah, good point, because I already gave my results, so why would you leave anyway, right?
Right,
We're using Yeah, I've
You've
said.
been exiled to Minnesota, where are you?
Yeah, if I was leaving from Minnesota, within the
I
I would probably go to Oregon, not Portland. Really good weather, it was not too hot, and it's a nice place. It's not California, it's on the west coast, nice climate, and it's not Portland, because Portland isn't too weird.
So.
Not guilty, right?
Yeah.
Moving experience. So where would you want to be exiled to, or never exiled to? Or favorite move,
yeah.
I moved back 3 years ago.
Okay.
In the car.
from,
The Garden State. It's not very good.
Okay.
For work. For school.
Okay.
It's still here for the long independence.
It's, yeah.
okay.
Nice to see.
I got used to it.
Still got it.
I'm sorry.
All right, let's jump back into the rest of our meeting here, and this is the part of the meeting that we all pine for every week. I need more speakers. And a few evaluations. Today we've got 2 great speakers. We've got Tyler, who's gonna give us an icebreaker, and Vince has kindly volunteered to step in at the last moment with an impromptu. So we're gonna start with Tyler. Tyler's doing his icebreaker. He moved here 8 years ago for school, never left. He came from the yeah.
I think with icebreaker, you just introduce them and you can tell us.
Come on up and tell us more about yourself. name.
Who's the Toastmaster today? Oh, okay. Mr. Toastmaster, ladies and gentlemen. So this is my icebreaker talk. It's about me. I would have chosen other things, but that's, I guess, how it goes. So we've all used the internet, of course. Some of us got started a bit earlier than others. For me, I first got access in 1994. Of course, the internet back then really wasn't anything close to what we have today. But at the time, to me at least, it was the most interesting thing in the world. Today, I'm going to share a few things that I remember from how things were back then. So back in 1994, I had a 286. Couldn't run Windows, so I was stuck just with text display running DOS. And a 2400 baud modem, which was incredibly slow. It's about 300 characters per second. So you could sit there and you could watch the characters stream across the phone line as you were waiting to read whatever it was. Even with things being that incredibly slow, it's completely entranced with what I saw. So with that set up, I had text-based access to the web using a program called Lynx, which is a text-based web browser. There wasn't much in the way of content back then. That was just when Yahoo got started. So I remember conducting searches, but not finding some things there. The most interesting part for me was definitely having access to kind of unfiltered information, not something that was prepackaged for you in the form of a book or a television show. There was still a lot of activity back then. Usenet and IRC, I've experimented with those a little bit. I think I managed to download silly text files, stuff about electronics. I started to learn to code in BASIC at that point, but I didn't really pursue that with any great fervor until a few years later. Typical stuff you'd expect from a 14-year-old kid. So nowadays, pretty much everybody has access to the internet, kind of all around us. But back then, there were very few people that did this sort of thing. It was kind of rare. They were almost always interesting people, not really many average Joes. So interesting could go either way. I understand that here in Minnesota, interesting often has that negative connotation. Oh, that's interesting. So it took me a few years to figure that one out. So there, on occasion, you would meet these people in real life. Sometimes it was fun, and you made good friends. I still have friends to this day. Sometimes you didn't. That was always a bit awkward. So don't get the wrong impression, though. Although I spent a good many hours getting a monitor tan in my teen years, it didn't consume me altogether. I still have regular friends and girlfriend and mom in high school. In closing, the way in which that we, in future years, the way in which we access the network changed, mostly for the better, faster, powerful, and that changed what we could do with the medium. Possibly as a result of that shift, the people who kind of did access these kinds of things and were interested in it kind of shifted as well. Everybody does it now, so maybe something a little bit something was lost, and all the old internet gave way to the new. Thank you.
Now stepping in, so that we have at least 2 speeches. We're gonna have Vince come up and tell us, speak on the topic of when in doubt, try it out. And I asked Vince, if we were to exile him from Minnesota, where would he want to go? He told me, Oregon. But not Portland. Likes the climate on the West Coast. Minnesota got some cool stuff, but I think that knowing Vince, some of the liberal tendencies of Portland are probably not things that Vince would appreciate, but here he's going to tell us about when in doubt, try it out. Vince?
Thank you, Tony. Yes, I have taken a fancy to the show Portlandia. They make fun of Portland quite a bit. It's quite funny. But anyway, so today my title is When in Doubt, Try It Out. And it is something that is kind of a motto to which I've adhered for the majority of my life. And the basic idea here is that if you are interested in something and you think something seems kind of kind of fun, or maybe you really want to try your luck at something, just go ahead and try it, because what's the worst that could happen, And as a computer programmer, I always say, if you mess up, just press Control C. No big deal, right? Now, I was thinking about this a couple weeks ago, and I thought about how there was a moment or a time in my life where this kind of thing really struck me, and that was way back in 5th grade. We had a PSA, some kind of person giving us some sort of motivational speech, that sort of thing. I don't recall at all what he said. That never resonated with me. It was probably something wasn't, so I didn't have to worry about that. But what I do remember is that he juggled. That was fun. And what he wanted to do at the end of this was to teach the entirety of the 5th grade class, not 20 kids, but all 5th grade classes, like 100 kids, to juggle in like 10 minutes. Like, how are you supposed to do that? It doesn't make any sense, right? But he kind of did. And the first thing he did was that he wasn't exactly one of these. This is actually a Norwest clock, but it was the closest representation of what it was they used. So he gave us all scarves. Basically those scarves that like magicians use, they crumple up and they go, look at this, I got 50 different scarves all in my pocket, whatever. Anyway, so he said, look, okay, so if you're all 10 years old or whatever, you can't juggle, but maybe you shouldn't be using balls, or maybe we're not gonna have flaming bowling pins or anything like that, but you can juggle scarves. And because, well, it's pretty easy, right? When you look at what it is, it says, hey, just go like this and throw it up. And then he said, then we're going to add in a little bit of wrinkle here. We're not just throwing it up in the air and just catching it, whatever. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to throw it from one hand to the next hand, right? You're not really trying to go through some robotic movement of going like this, down, 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 down. All you're really doing is throwing one thing from one hand to the next. That's all juggling really is. Might sound way more complicated, but that's all it really is. You have something in one hand and you're throwing it into the other. Right? Now, okay, so we were only doing that, and then we held one scarf in each hand, and then we would throw it into the next hand like that. Then we'd have 2 scarves, right? Then we had a scarf in each hand, and we'd have a 3rd scarf, and all we'd be doing is throwing one scarf from one hand to the next. Now, then at the very end of that, after he kind of threw a couple more wrinkles in, he said, okay, now that we've all learned how to juggle, we're going to have kind of a juggling contest and see who can juggle the longest. And as it so happened, I was the one that was left juggling longest. So I learned how to juggle in 10 minutes from this guy. So I'm going to teach you all that right now. So essentially, like I said, all you're really doing is throwing one ball from one hand to the next. There's nothing more to it than that. You're not going to do. It isn't robotic. It isn't some sort of perfect thing. You're just throwing it from one hand to the next, right? You're not really, nothing special. You don't have to be particularly accurate. Just somewhere in the general vicinity of the other hand, right? Now, the only thing you've done differently than just throwing a ball from one hand to the next is you've put a ball in each of your hands, right? Now, the one thing that we're going to change here is instead of throwing the same ball, I'm going to throw the ball that I currently have in my hand. But I'm not just going to go through some weird robotic motion. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wait to the very last second, and just before it hits my hand, I throw the one that was in that hand. Okay? So let's try it. So we go like this, wait for the last second, then I throw it at the last second. Get that? So I'm not really going to. I'm just throwing it up, and then at the very last second, I throw it. Okay? So watch. Throw it up, and at the very last second, okay, throw it. Up, throw it up. And at that point, you realize you don't even have to be particularly accurate, right? So this is the kind of thing that I like to do. When I see something that seems really interesting to me, I say, might as well go ahead and try it. And, I thought, okay, so here I am, now I'm just juggling. It's pretty easy. You're doing the same thing over and over again. Not very difficult. Every once in a while, you might try to talk to the crowd, look at them, and then you drop the ball, right? But anyway, so I figure I might start trying to mix it up. Like maybe, juggling with one hand and then switching what hand it is. And you know what? If I mess up, that's perfectly fine. Because if I'm doubting myself, but I think it's kind of interesting, when in doubt, try it out, right? And think, even this is getting kind of easy, right? So I figured, okay, I've seen people do some pretty cool things. Why don't I try putting it behind my back? No big deal, right? So you kind of learn you say to yourself, all right, this sounds pretty cool. I can juggle, and maybe I can whip this out whenever I'm out in a group of people, or I'm hanging out with my nieces and nephews, and I want to impress little kids, whatever it is. That's pretty cool, but like I said, you want to throw in some general wrinkles. And maybe it takes you 50 times before you finally be able to throw it underneath one of your legs or whatever. No big deal, but go ahead. When in doubt, try it out. No big deal. And I figure, even that's not even that difficult after you do it a bunch of times. And you have enough room and the ceiling's high enough, you can throw it up really high. In fact, it's actually a lot easier than juggling normally because you have so much time before you wait to the very last second to catch it. It's actually a lot harder to do something like this. It's actually a lot harder, as I proved. But another thing I've seen people do when juggling is they'll do things like bounce it off the floor or the wall or something. So I thought, you know what? When in doubt, try juggling in front of people and in a crowd of people and in an impromptu speech because it sounds like a cool, interesting thing to do. So I figure, okay, I'm going to try doing that. I'm going to juggle off the wall. And after doing this alone for an hour, maybe I actually learned how to do it, right? So, like I said, in conclusion, if you say to yourself, you know what, I want to juggle, or I want to learn how to do balloon animal or something like that, and you're not quite sure if you're going to be able to do it, just go ahead. When in doubt, try it out. Mr. Toastmaster.
I'm not sure that I can top that. Well, of course, as Toastmaster, I'm not really supposed to try, but anyhow, now is the time where we get the most important thing for any of our speeches is feedback. We can't get better if we don't know what we did right and maybe a few things that we might improve on. To lead us through that portion of the meeting is Leanne.
All right, so we are going to vote on the speakers. So if we could bow our heads and raise your hand if you're going to vote for speaker number 1, Tyler, who gave his icebreaker speech today. Thank you. And raise your hands if you're going to vote for speaker number 2, Vince's speech, when in doubt, try it out. Raise your heads. So now we will move to the evaluation portion. So we're going to have Gwen evaluate Tyler.
Tyler, thank you so much for your icebreaker today. It's always really fun to get to know a new member, and you did a great job. Thank you. I want to comment especially on your engaging style. I was so impressed with how you had the animation in your gestures, your face lit up. You had a smiling expression on your face, not like you're a toothy smile, but you look really excited. And I thought all those things were very positive qualities that seem to come very naturally. I also, in relation to the topic, this was an opportunity for us to get to know you, and I thought you did a really good job as describing yourself as a 14-year-old boy interested in computers. At the beginning, you looked a little uncomfortable at the idea of talking about yourself. Of course, we want to get to know you. So I agree with you. That's probably talking about yourself is maybe the most difficult kind of topic. Especially, and it was obvious that once you started talking about computers, your expression completely changed and you became very natural and very animated. However, we do like to get to know you.
And so having a little bit of information about you personally is always really interesting. So becoming more comfortable talking about, just sharing a little bit about yourself is a good thing to share in speech. And I say that as much for me, for my own benefit as well as for you. Overall, you did a great job. Another thing that I was very impressed with is you had notes, but you did not rely on them very much at all. In fact, it was very clear that you were very well prepared and very organized. You had a clear opening, body, and conclusion. And so the presentation was very well organized, very well prepared. And you have a lot of natural ability to be engaging and presenter to this great topic and very good presentation. Thank you.
All right, and we're gonna now hear from Tony, who is stepping in to evaluate this.
Vince, great job. Stepping in at the last moment to pick up and do an impromptu speech can always be difficult. So I want to say that's fantastic, especially that you came prepared, just in case I might. This is something maybe we could all learn, is just in case we need an extra speaker, maybe I should bring something or do a little prep. And so Vince brought the balls, the scarf, and gave us a little demonstration. Gave us a good introductory story. Your speech was officially listed out of this manual, the entertaining speaker, and so the speech was the entertaining speech, was the type of speech. I think you did a good job of entertaining people through starting out and doing some physical actions. It asks here, how descriptive were they, and how many stories and things like that, because that's what we normally expect. But I think using a visual demonstration is a great alternative to the normal speaking. You kept everybody's attention, and people were definitely entertained because people were reacting during your speech. I liked how you kept repeating, you made your title the point of your speech, and you kept repeating and interjecting it throughout. Great job. There's a question here that says, how could you improve it? That's kind of hard when you're stepping in at doing an impromptu thing, and especially one like this. I might say, about the only thing I could think of for that was have a couple extra things in the bag, maybe, I don't know, add a Rubik's Cube or something to the juggling act, or something to, one additional little object. What was your strongest asset, they ask? I would say the fact that you stepped up, you've got a great personality, you feel very comfortable and very confident. I think that made for a fantastic speech. Thank you very much.
So now, once again, we're going to bow our heads and we're going to vote on evaluators. So maybe we can bow our heads, and if you're going to vote for Gwen evaluating Tony, raise your hand. Thank you. And if you're voting for Tony evaluating Vince, raise your hands. Thanks. All right, so we are going to get a report from our timer, please.
Okay.
If you want to give us a report.
Okay, yes, right. So, in terms of our table topics, we were all pretty much on or under the mark. Chad, you were at 1 minute 17 seconds. Drew, you were 1 minute 12 seconds. Go away, pop-up. I really don't want to install Candy Crush. Jacobus, you were at 25 seconds, and Leanne, you were at 51 seconds. When it came to our prepared speeches, Tyler, you were at 3 minutes, 20 seconds. The minimum is 5 minutes. Vince, you were over time at 7 minutes and 7 seconds, but tiny bit. Evaluators, Gwen, 2 minutes, 16 seconds, and Tony, 2 minutes, 35 seconds. Evaluations are 2 to 3 minutes, so you guys were right in the right spot.
Thanks, Katie. And now, Mike, who is our grammarian, will provide his report.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and the joy of being grammarian when you got when showed up and that we were all awake and having these awakenings to be able to participate with it. Unfortunately, awakening was not a very popular word. It was not used as much as I would have liked to see. When you used it twice though, and Chad, you used it in yours. However, I don't recall anyone else using the word of the day. There were some ahs and ums. Some had more than others. Tyler, you had, I believe I counted 32, which is a really good number because that's a multiple of 8, and it's actually binary. So if you did 1, 0, 0, I think 3 zeros, 4 zeros, gets you to 32, 64. So we can work on taking that down to 60. Just shift the bit over next time, shift the bit the next time, shift the bit another time, and we'll actually get to the point where you get down to just either 1 or 0 ahs and ums in your presentation. So you could say you actually have 1,000. It was. I like the use of words though. I did like the Vince, where Tyler was working on ahs and ums. You had 8, which is also a multiple of 8. Rights, right?
Mhm.
Because when you say that, right?
It's a verb.
Right.
Right.
Right. So, you could work on right, but that was okay. There was only one word picture, a simile that I heard today that was using like or as, and when I say that the use of the word of the day was as barren as a Hillary Clinton rally, that was Vince, and so he's going to get the word picture of the day. Vince.
Thank you, Mike. Gwen, for our stand-in table topics, do you want to give the wise old owl?
Oh,
Can we down to brilliance on that?
so the Wise Old Owl is presenting, or for the best table topics, it's the, it's the
And Chad talked about moving grandma, Drew talked
Oh,
about Vancouver,
definitely.
Jacob has talked about late moving, and Leanne talked about the working.
Thank you for the review of our table topics.
In case you're wondering.
Yes, thank you. And Chad, I do have to say that you get the prize not only for your presentation during table topics, but for being the good grandson who's going to help his grandmother.
Thank you.
And now it is time for our best speaker and evaluator awards. So please put your hands together for our best speaker, which was Vince. And our best evaluator, please come up for Gwen. In terms of the meeting this morning, so part of my role as general evaluator is to give an evaluation of Toastmaster and how things went. This morning was definitely an awakening in terms of improvisation at TechMasters. I think we had a lot of people not show, late, just mayhem. So thanks to everybody who jumped in, so Gwen and other folks, Vince for jumping in on an impromptu speech. Thanks for Tony who jumped in on an evaluator and was able to get things rolling once you arrived. So definitely a lesson in how to jump in and improvise. So with that, I am going to turn it back to our Toastmaster.
2020.
All right, we have a couple additional awards that we can give out. We have our Fuzzy Mouse, which is for who did the best job of doing a technical topic and making it sound like something not so fuzzy or confusing. We didn't really have a technical topic today, so I'm going to withhold that one. Having come in late, we have our Sparkplug Award. And I would like, I don't know who to give this to, but I would.
Mr. Toastmaster, I would like to nominate Gwen because she stepped in to be the tabletop semester.
Thanks for stepping in.
Thank you.
Now I have time, at this point, I have a few closing remarks. Or I can make some closing remarks. I think that it's interesting to see how the character of this group is changing a little bit. It's nice to see some new faces. You know, the faces that we've had have been great. I missed them, but it's always nice to see some new ones. And so I'm really happy that during the last couple of months, when I've been gone, we've actually picked up and had a few newcomers join us. I look forward to hearing from all of you. And I look forward to, of course, I look forward to hearing from our regulars. It's always good to hear like Vince and Mike and some of our others who've done great tech topics in the past, to hear more tech topics. Overall, I think the meeting went fairly well, especially given how many people had to step in and do things at the last minute. I think that's the sign of a healthy organization. I think you all demonstrate that we are a healthy organization. At that, I'd like to turn it over to our presiding officer of the day, and that would be Vince.
Thank you, Tony. Vice President of Education, by the way, is number 2 in the chain of command. All right, so before we go, is there any new business? How about closing announcements?
There is a, the Enterprise Mobile Group's meeting Thursday, if people are interested.
Where?
At ILM, yeah, at 5:30, so Enterprise Mobile Group, Thursday this week.
That's definitely one of my favorite meeting groups, probably my favorite meeting. The only problem to me is that my wife works late on Thursday night. But I really enjoy going there. Mike?
Mr. President, one of the things I had lunch yesterday with James Zuber, who was here a couple of weeks ago doing a talk on startups or something along those lines, podcasting. And as a former member of TechMasters, he's interested in something we used to do called TechMasters After Dark, TMAD, which is essentially a single track, one session, mini conference type scenario where you get an opportunity to stand up and do a presentation for about an hour, or we could do 2.5 hours or something along those lines. But I am gauging interest if you would like to practice doing a presentation for that kind of a format and would be interested in participating. I'm putting together some thoughts and some notes around that. We could post it here. We could do a lot of interesting things, but give you a chance to practice in a way that we don't have a call for content where you have to get accepted into some conference or drive 500 miles to deliver it, but do it right here. So if you're interested, see me after the meeting and let me know.
Great. Yeah, we've done those definitely in the past, and we kind of had agreed to do it at least once a year. And Mike did one back in February, March. We did the Parliamentary Procedure and Action module from Toastmasters. Typically, we do like to do things technical, but we happen to been an election year, and I have the Parliamentary Procedure and Action. We wanted to get a little tighter on that part of that portion of our meeting. And so I asked him to do that. He said, why not make it a TechMasters after dark? So we did that. Anyway, so typically we'd be doing something technical. We try not to make it the most in-depth technical thing. It wouldn't be, the most hardcore we're gonna break down some library framework to only tech people. It's typically just technically related. We've done things like how to give technical presentations and let's see, what I'm trying to remember.
We did how to give
Good technical good
kick-ass
presentation. in
kick-ass
general.
presentations.
And
Kick-ass
then-
presentations.
Yep.
There's been one on how to do, or how to speak at conferences, there's been one on parliamentary procedure.
So we were doing it kind of spotty before. We demanded for sure at least once a year.
We did one on mobile, didn't you?
We were going to.
Did
We did not end up getting all together. But it is something that I would be interested in doing as well. So we'd be discussing in general, mobile development across the platform development, without specifically diving into some nuts and bolts examples or something like that. All right, any other announcements? Next week's Toastmaster is Katie. So
Okay.
try to think of a theme and please try to get an email on, before Monday afternoon. Which is not all right. And thank you for breaking the streak of like 7 months in a row of the next week's Toastmaster not being there. Really weird. Where I'm like, okay, I put that on the schedule because I wanted the next week's Toastmaster to know their Toastmaster before 5 days later when they check the schedule or something. And so I say that and everybody was like, oh, next week's Toastmaster is not here. Kind of defeats the purpose. So thank you for being here. Although you were here, so it's not that difficult, that much of a travel for you. Do we have a closing thought from next week's Toastmaster, this week's invitation timer?
The greatest understanding you can have if you want to be enlightened is that no one will ever understand you.
All right. Great. And with that, I'll adjourn the meeting.
This is a memo.
Just make a script.